All right. Well, for those of you that are watching out there, it's the What's on Sports podcast. We come to
Yep.
you live on Facebook and YouTube every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. Michael has his own show, by the way, and he does Tuesdays and Thursdays,
Mhm.
and you can watch it on the same channel. You can also download all these shows on your favorite podcast place. Michael, I need to tell these guys what you do. Your show is called Fantasy Fallout, and you are one of the premier experts, in my opinion, in fantasy sports. So today I've asked you to come on here and tell me your 5 sleepers for the weekend. These are your guaranteed, wow, these are going to blow you away picks. I want to hear all about them starting right now. Give me number 5.
All right, number 5. Well, before we go into it, like you mentioned, all the plenty of great articles on whatsonsports.com, and you can find this article where I go into my favorite DFS plays. There's player rankings on there. You can see Lance's player team rankings on there if you want to give yourself a laugh. There's plenty of great free articles on there. It's all educational. It's a lot of fun. So anyway, sleepers for week 13. All right, let's start with Cam Akers, rookie running back for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this has been a backfield that no one can really nail down. All right, we thought it was going to be Cam Akers coming into the season. He was highly touted, drafted in 5th, 6th round in some fantasy leagues. So a lot of excitement coming in because a rookie running back with a real skill set in
Yeah, I
Sean
believe
McVay's
he was
offense.
second round in the draft, right?
In the draft, yeah, right. And we're remembering the success that Todd Gurley had in Sean McVay's offense, where he was the number 1 running back only 3 years ago. So there was a lot of hope that Cam Akers could kind of step into that role. However, it turned out to be much more of a committee with Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown, and Cam Akers, a kind of 3-headed monster that McVay has been rolling out. However, over the recent weeks, Cam Akers has really started to, especially last week, show that he is the most talented running back in that backfield. I mean, last week, Darrell Henderson had 10 carries for 19 yards. Okay. Malcolm Brown, who started the season with a 2-touchdown game, had just 3 carries for 4 yards last week. And then Cam Akers, 9 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown. And that did come, on one big play. But you love to see that explosiveness. I like Cam Akers a lot going forward, especially, as we get into the fantasy playoffs. He's probably available on a lot of your benches, or I'm sorry, a lot of your waiver wires out there for people who play in season long. So I would go scoop him up right away, especially if you're in a keeper league. I think he will be the workhorse starting back for the Los Angeles Rams next year. Guarantee it.
All right. So Cam Akers is number 4. Number 5. Who's going to be your number 4?
Well, number 4, I'll go with another running back, and that's Myles Gaskin of the Miami Dolphins. Now, Gaskin has missed, the last 4 weeks with a knee injury, but the Miami Dolphins, and Brian Flores, they want to use one primary back. That's how they like to run their offense, and that's how they get it going. All right. So listen to the numbers. The number of touches that Myles Gaskin had since he took over the starting role in week 3. All right. He had 27 touches, 13, 21, 22, and 21. All right. So he was clearly their lead back in getting the ball on, 70% of the running back touches there. And then Salvon Ahmed, who actually took over for Myles Gaskin in his absence for the 2 weeks that he was out, 2 of the 4 weeks, Salvon Ahmed comes in and he gets 22 touches in week 10 and 17 touches in week 11. So this is a guy who hadn't played before. He comes right in and he's getting the full bulk of the work. All right. So Gaskins is expected to come back. And if he is active this week, he's an absolute must start. Love him in DraftKings. He's only 5,900. And that's an excellent value for someone who is essentially guaranteed to get 15 to 20 touches because we know that they like to use him that way. And he's a talented running back. He can also catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. So if Gaskins doesn't play, but Salvon Ahmed does, I would plug Ahmed right in there and have full confidence starting him as a solid RB2 this week.
Nice. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go with number 3. Who you got at number 3 today?
All right, number 3 for the next 3, we're going to focus on some. Well, actually, we'll do one more running back. All right, so Nyheim Hines. He was a guy that I've been a big fan of. I talk about him almost every week in my DFS column because he's always so underpriced. Well, Naheem Hines had uh, 10 rushes last week and 10 receiving targets in Jonathan Taylor's absence. Taylor missed; he was on the COVID list. So uh, Hines comes in and immediately gets 10 carries, 8 receptions on 10 targets. And this week they face the Houston Texans, who have given up the second most rushing yards per game to backfields this season. So even if Jonathan Taylor is active, which is looking like he will play, I think there's plenty of room for both of these running backs to produce this week against a terrible Texans defense. And Naheem Hines, another guy who's always so cheap. He's just 5,300 on DraftKings, and he got 20 looks last week. If he gets another 15 to 20 touches, like I said, against this Houston defense, there's no way that he doesn't produce at least 15 fantasy points. And part of the thing that really excites me about Naheem Hines is, like I said, his work in the passing game. 10 targets last week. He had 13 targets earlier in the season, which was a season high. And in a point per reception format, which a lot of season long leagues are, and especially DraftKings, that's invaluable. Those easy receptions out of the backfield.
Yeah, well, he was excellent last week, and I could see they really, really, really like to use him out of the backfield, like little trick plays to this kid. I mean, they're getting him involved a lot, mainly because they want to see him score a touchdown and probably do a flip or something like that. But
I'd like to see that too. I mean, he's a hell of an acrobat. So
yeah, it's pretty interesting. Let's see your number 2 guy. By the way, for those of you that just joined us, people come in and out of this chat all day long. For those who just joined us, the chat's going on. You guys can leave your comments and stuff like that if you want to ask Michael any questions. Also, keep in mind out there, guys, Michael Schussler is got his own podcast, but he comes on this show every once in a while, drops little nuggets like these. These nuggets could make you money over the weekend. If you're a daily fantasy football player, you got to pay attention. Who's number 2 on your sleeper list?
Number 2 is a guy that I have, essentially been in love with since last year. That's DJ Chark of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the reason I love Chark so much this week, especially, is because of this kind of peculiar pattern. All right. So listen to this. DJ Chark started the season with 2 10-point fantasy performances in weeks 1 and 2. All right. Then he missed week 3 with an injury. He returns week 4 with a 25-point game. He had 8 receptions, 95 yards, and 2 touchdowns. All right. Then he had a couple mediocre weeks following that. Week 8, the Jags were off for their bye week. All right. So that's another missed week for DJ Chark. He comes in fresh on week 9, and he has a massive 146 yards and another touchdown.
Wow.
Well, Chark missed last week with an injury, but he is expected to play this week. So it's a bit of a loose pattern, but I feel like he when he takes a day off, gets himself right, gets himself fresh, when he comes back, all he does is eat. I love DJ Chark this week. Again, he's only 5,400 on DraftKings, extremely cheap. And I think he's a top 20 receiver. You can check him out on my rankings on whatsonsports.com. I don't care if Mike Glennon's the quarterback. All right. I don't care who it is, because he is their most explosive offensive player, aside from maybe James Robinson, who's been an absolute stud. But as far as moving the ball down the field, especially when they're trailing, which they often are because they're the Jaguars, I love DJ Chark to get another 10, 12 targets and guarantee he scores this week.
Cool. So who's your number 1 guy?
All right. So number 1 is Golden Tate of the New York Giants. Now, a lot of people forget about Golden Tate. All right. But he had a season high 9 targets last week, and he's facing the worst pass defense in the league in the Seattle Seahawks this week. So he's also, we talk about Daniel Jones maybe not playing, but that actually doesn't really scare me because Golden Tate works a lot out of the slot, and he's, most utilized in those short, slant routes, out routes, anything within 10 yards. So it's going to be an easy completion for whoever is playing quarterback for the New York Giants. I also think that they're going to be trailing heavily in this game, trying to keep up with Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. I would love to see Golden Tate get another 9, maybe 10 targets this week. If he does that, he's going to produce. He may not score, but he's only 3,800 on DraftKings. That's extremely cheap for a guy who can eat like, and if you use my price to profit algorithm, if he's 3,800, you really only need about 12 to 13 fantasy points for him to return value. I think that's
awesome.
And in a full point PPR, I think that's, that's more than doable. I think that's almost guaranteed. So those are my sleepers. These aren't guys that are necessarily going to win you a week, except I would say maybe DJ Chark could be a top 5 receiver this week. And, if Naheem Hines is utilized like he has been, he could be a top 10 running back as well. But the rest of these guys are, way under the radar guys. You can probably pick them up on your waiver wire, on whatever league you're going to, or that you're playing in, as we head into the most crucial time in the fantasy football season, which is, week 13, last week of the regular season as we move into the fantasy playoffs. So, pick these guys up, get them on your roster. They're probably just sitting there. It's probably too late to make any trades. A lot of those deadlines are over, but if it's not, try to trade for them. Like I said, these guys, their value is extremely underpriced right now, and you got to get them.
Awesome. His name is Michael Schussler. He's over at whatsonsports.com. For those of you that never visited the website, go over and check it out. He's also got his own podcast, which is called The Fantasy Fallout, where he will lullaby you with all sorts of amazing fantasy news every Tuesday and Thursday right here on this same channel for those of you that are watching us live. Now, for those of you that just wandered in and thought, wow, this guy's got a great voice, I'd love to hear him talk about sports. You guys can listen to our show, which is on every one of your podcast platforms where you can download us on iTunes, Google's, Spotify, etc., so on. You can even go to our website and listen to these shows, which is whatsonsports.com. I also want to remind everybody that we do have a sponsor, which is sportstradingsystems.com. If you want to learn how to trade sports like other people trade stocks, you've got to go over right now to sportstradingsystems.com. They've got a special deal going on for only $49. They will give you 5 winners. That's right. $49 will give you 5 winners right now. If you're a $100 player, you could make a tremendous amount of money by going over to Sports Trading Systems right now. They won't stop giving you picks until they give you 5 winners. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's been a pleasure to have you. For those of you that want to know more about Michael, you can listen to his show on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or you can go over to What's on Sports. I believe you have an article coming up today. Is that correct, Mike?
Yep, that's correct. It'll be my week 13 daily fantasy, best value plays. And this is an article that you read every week. John, you said you've made, over $1,200 in the last 2 weeks using my price to profit algorithm. It works. Money doesn't lie. So you got to take advantage of it. It's completely free. Go on the website, whatsonsports.com. You can see, like I said, plenty of other amazing articles on there. It's all educational and it's all completely free for your consumption. Like John said, you can watch me on my Fantasy Fallout podcast every Tuesday and Thursday. And, much to your disappointment, John, I actually am wearing pants today. I'm not entirely sure if I will be next week. Depends on, the weather and how I'm feeling. But, check us out on YouTube, on Facebook, anywhere that you get your podcasts. Apple.
It's COVID. We're all working remotely. You have no idea how many people across the world are not wearing pants at work right now. It's not just us.
I don't think people should be wearing pants anymore. Like, it's 2020. Like, it's not necessary.
Get rid of them.